The night. A time for rest, for dreams to weave their fantastical tapestries in the quiet corners of our minds. But what happens when the veil between our peaceful slumber and the harsh realities of the waking world thins? Have you ever lain in bed, the darkness pressing in, and felt a sudden, inexplicable chill? A prickle of fear that has no discernible source, yet crawls with icy fingers under your skin? Tonight, as the rain whispers secrets against your windowpane, a sound that can be both soothing and strangely isolating, we turn our attention to the unsettling truth that reality itself can conjure nightmares far more disturbing than any figment of our imagination. We will explore cases where the ordinary fabric of life was torn asunder by acts both baffling and brutal. Where the expected turned into the inexplicable, and the comfort of familiarity gave way to the chilling unknown. Prepare yourselves, for the stories that await are not mere tales spun to frighten. These are documented events, real lives touched by darkness, leaving behind questions that linger like shadows in the deepest hours of the night. 6 accounts where the line between safety and terror blurred, forever altering the lives caught within their grasp. Listen closely, as the rain continues its steady descent, and allow these true stories to settle into the quiet spaces of your mind. What you are about to hear is a testament to the fact that sometimes, the most frightening things are not those that go bump in the night, but the stark, undeniable horrors that unfold in the cold light of day, leaving an indelible mark on the human psyche. Story 1. April 8, 2025. A date that began like any other in a quiet corner of Brooklyn. Children were likely preparing for school, the rhythm of daily life unfolding with its usual, unassuming cadence. But on this particular day, within the walls of an ordinary residence, an event of extraordinary violence shattered the normalcy, leaving behind a scene that would shock even the most seasoned investigators. What unfolded was an alleged act so brutal, so seemingly incomprehensible, that it sent ripples of disbelief and fear throughout the community. The details that would soon emerge painted a picture of vulnerability confronted by unimaginable aggression, a stark reminder of how swiftly the sanctuary of home can be violated. This is the story of what happened that day, a chilling sequence of events that began with the piercing sound of a desperate plea. Imagine the sudden shattering of a peaceful afternoon. The abrupt intrusion of terror into a space meant for safety and childhood innocence. On that day, 4 young girls, nieces visiting their relative, found themselves at the center of an unimaginable nightmare. Details that would later emerge from the investigation suggest an attack of shocking ferocity, allegedly perpetrated by a man known to them. The weapon reportedly used was a meat cleaver, an implement of the kitchen turned into an instrument of brutal violence. As the horrifying events unfolded, amidst the chaos and the terror, one of the young victims, displaying incredible courage and presence of mind, managed to make a 911 call. Try to envision the scene, the pandemonium, the fear, and then, a small voice, trembling yet resolute, reaching out for help in the midst of absolute chaos. That single phone call, a lifeline in the face of unimaginable danger, would become a crucial piece of the puzzle, a testament to the bravery of a child confronted with unimaginable horror. The words spoken in that desperate call, though fragmented by fear and urgency, painted a vivid picture of the unfolding violence, a picture that would leave a lasting impact on those who heard it. The bravery displayed in that moment offered a beacon of hope amidst the darkness, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, even in its most vulnerable form. The aftermath of such an event extends far beyond the immediate physical trauma. Consider the profound shock and grief that would engulf the family of these young girls. A day that was meant for connection and familial warmth twisted into a source of unimaginable pain. The innocence of childhood, so fragile and precious, was brutally confronted by a harsh and terrifying reality. Their world, and the world of everyone who loves them, was irrevocably altered in an instant. The emotional scars left by such an alleged act of violence are deep and enduring, wounds that time may attempt to heal but will likely never fully erase. The community itself grappled with a sense of disbelief and outrage, the quiet streets of Brooklyn suddenly feeling less secure, the sense of safety within one's own home shattered. The questions would begin to surface: how could such a thing happen? What could have been done to prevent it? The search for understanding in the face of such brutality is a natural human response, a desperate attempt to make sense of the senseless. As the immediate shock subsided, the focus shifted to the man charged in connection with this horrific attack. The legal process began, an attempt to unravel the motive, to understand the chain of events that led to such violence. But the question that lingered in the minds of many was a simple yet profoundly disturbing one: what could possibly drive an individual to inflict such pain and terror upon defenseless children? The investigation would undoubtedly delve into the past, seeking answers in relationships, in history, in the hidden corners of the human psyche. Yet, the sheer brutality of the alleged act leaves a chilling void, a space where comprehension struggles to take hold. The community remains in a state of shock, grappling with the enormity of what transpired. The search for justice has begun, but the underlying question of why continues to echo in the silence after the storm. The answers, if they ever fully emerge, promise to be as unsettling as the crime itself. And as the rain continues to fall on the streets of Brooklyn, the weight of this horrific event hangs heavy in the air, a stark reminder of the darkness that can sometimes erupt in the most unexpected of places. Story 2. The sanctity of our homes. A place where we seek refuge, where we let down our guard and embrace the quiet comfort of our personal space. But what happens when that sanctuary is violently breached? When the very walls meant to protect us become the backdrop for unimaginable terror? We now turn our attention to a case that unfolded several years prior, a chilling reminder of how quickly the familiar can transform into a scene of utter devastation. Though time has passed since that fateful night in 2021, the shadow of a crime so profoundly senseless continues to linger, a stark testament to the fragility of life and the devastating consequences of a single, brutal act. Imagine a quiet evening, the kind where the world outside fades away and the tranquility of home envelopes you. For a 22-year-old student, that peace was about to be irrevocably shattered. The details that would later emerge painted a picture of a sudden and violent intrusion, a home invasion that escalated with terrifying speed. The motive, as it would become chillingly clear, was something seemingly commonplace in our modern lives: the passcode to an iPad. A simple string of digits, a key to digital information, became the catalyst for an act of ultimate violence. Picture the confrontation, the demand, the refusal. A moment of defiance, perhaps born of a desire for privacy, for the protection of personal information. But in that moment, that refusal allegedly ignited a rage that would lead to irreversible tragedy. The ensuing violence, the details of which remain deeply disturbing, culminated in the young student's death. A life extinguished, not over a vast fortune or a deeply held secret, but over access to a digital device. The sheer disproportion between the motive and the outcome is what lends this case its particularly unsettling quality, a stark illustration of how quickly human interactions can devolve into unimaginable brutality. He was just 22 years old. A student, presumably with hopes and dreams for the future, with connections to family and friends, with a life unfolding before him. All of that was brutally cut short within the confines of his own home, a place where he should have been safe. Consider the devastating impact on his loved ones, the parents who nurtured him, the friends who shared his journey, the future that will now forever remain unfulfilled. Their grief, a raw and enduring pain, is a stark reminder of the profound cost of such senseless violence. A young life, brimming with potential, extinguished in an instant over something as seemingly trivial as a digital password. The sheer waste of it, the utter finality, leaves a deep ache, a sense of injustice that resonates long after the headlines fade. It forces us to confront the fragility of life and the arbitrary nature of violence that can shatter everything in its path. In the years that followed that horrific night, the wheels of justice turned. The individual responsible for this chilling act was apprehended and brought before the court. Ultimately, a sentence was handed down, a legal conclusion to a devastating crime. But does a sentence truly equate to justice in a case like this? Can any punishment fully account for the irreversible loss of a young life? While the legal system provides a framework for accountability, the underlying disquiet remains. The knowledge that a life was taken, a future stolen, over something so seemingly insignificant as an iPad passcode leaves a profound and unsettling feeling. It forces us to question the randomness of violence, the capricious nature of fate. Did justice truly prevail? Or does the sheer absurdity of the motive, the utter disproportion between the request and the fatal outcome, leave a deeper, more troubling question mark hanging in the air? A reminder that sometimes, the most terrifying crimes are those that seem to defy any logical explanation, leaving us to grapple with the unsettling truth of human cruelty and the precious, easily extinguished nature of life itself. Story 3. The image of home often evokes feelings of safety and security, a sanctuary from the unpredictable nature of the outside world. We trust in the familiar, in the routines of daily life, and perhaps most profoundly, in the people we share our lives with. But what happens when that trust is fractured? When the person closest to you becomes entangled in a web of unanswered questions, at the very heart of a deeply unsettling event. We now turn our attention to a case where the initial appearance of tragedy slowly gave way to a lingering sense of unease, a story where the search for truth continues to cast a long shadow. The initial report was one of domestic tragedy. A third-grade teacher, returning home, claimed to have discovered her husband deceased within their residence. At first glance, the scene might have appeared straightforward, a sudden and unfortunate event. Perhaps an accident, a medical emergency. The mind naturally seeks logical explanations in the face of the unexpected. The initial accounts likely focused on the teacher's distress, the shock of such a discovery. But as time passed, as investigators began to piece together the timeline and the circumstances surrounding the death, subtle inconsistencies began to emerge. Small details that didn't quite align, a feeling that something was amiss beneath the surface of the initial narrative. It was a gradual process, a slow accumulation of observations that led investigators to question the initial assumptions. What were the precise details of the discovery? Were there any unusual circumstances leading up to it? It was in these seemingly minor discrepancies, these faint cracks in the facade of a simple tragedy, that the seeds of doubt began to take root, eventually leading the authorities down a path far more complex and unsettling than initially imagined. The passage of time itself often acts as a relentless revealer, exposing the delicate fault lines within a seemingly solid structure. In any investigation, the gathering of information from various sources is crucial. Witness accounts, timelines, physical evidence, each piece contributes to the overall picture. In this case, as the initial shock wore off, investigators would have undoubtedly spoken with neighbors, colleagues, friends, anyone who might offer insight into the couple's lives and the events leading up to the husband's death. Perhaps initial accounts corroborated the teacher's story. Maybe there were details that seemed to point in one direction, only to be contradicted by other findings. The process of investigation is often one of sifting through layers of information, separating the relevant from the irrelevant, the truthful from the potentially misleading. There might have been initial theories that were later discarded, avenues of inquiry that led to dead ends. These potential misdirections, these investigative cul-de-sacs, are a natural part of the process, but they also serve to heighten the sense of uncertainty, the feeling that the truth remains just out of reach, obscured by a veil of unanswered questions. Consider the impact on the community, particularly the school where the teacher was a familiar and trusted figure. A sudden tragedy within the personal life of an educator can send ripples of concern and speculation through students, parents, and colleagues alike. To then have that tragedy become the subject of a lingering investigation, with the teacher herself under scrutiny, would undoubtedly create a climate of unease and uncertainty. A pillar of the community, someone entrusted with the care and education of young minds, now finds herself at the center of a deeply troubling mystery. The students, who once looked to her for guidance, might now hear whispers and rumors. The parents, who placed their trust in her, might now harbor doubts. This shift in perception, this erosion of trust, can have a profound impact, leaving a community fractured and searching for answers in the unsettling silence. Years have passed since the initial discovery, yet the full truth of what happened within those walls remains elusive. The suspicions that began as faint whispers have seemingly grown louder over time, leading investigators to continue their search for definitive answers. What secrets are still held within the confines of that suburban home? What unseen events transpired in the moments leading up to the husband's death? The fact that this case continues to generate questions years later speaks to the depth of the uncertainty surrounding it. It serves as a chilling reminder that sometimes, the answers we seek remain stubbornly out of reach, hidden beneath layers of conjecture and doubt. The truth, like a shadow, may shift and evade, leaving behind a lingering sense of unease and the unsettling possibility that some mysteries may never be fully resolved. Enjoying the atmosphere? Like and subscribe for more true crime mysteries. A comment prompt also appears. Which story has been the most chilling for you? We've journeyed through 3 truly unsettling cases now, each touching upon the fragility of safety, the darkness that can reside within the ordinary, and the enduring power of unanswered questions. If these stories have held your attention, if the mysteries we've explored have sparked a sense of unease, please take a moment to show your support. Liking this video helps others discover these stories, and subscribing ensures you won't miss future explorations into the shadowy corners of true crime. We're halfway through our journey tonight. Let me know in the comments below which of these 3 cases has resonated with you the most, which one has left you with the most lingering questions. As the rain continues its soothing rhythm, a constant backdrop to these real-life narratives, prepare yourself for 3 more tales from the darker side of reality. Stories of deception, of lives vanished, and of the chilling consequences of unchecked rage await. Story 4. In our increasingly interconnected world, the power of influence can be immense. Individuals can cultivate vast followings, building trust and admiration through carefully curated online personas. But what happens when that carefully constructed image is built upon a foundation of falsehood? When the very narrative that captivates and inspires is revealed to be an elaborate deception? We now turn to a story that chills in a different way, not through physical violence, but through the insidious and far-reaching consequences of lies meticulously woven and strategically deployed. It's a reminder that sometimes, the most damaging wounds are not those inflicted upon the body, but those that erode trust and exploit vulnerability on a grand scale. Imagine a narrative so compelling, so seemingly authentic, that it draws in millions of followers. A young woman sharing her journey of battling and triumphing over cancer, advocating for natural therapies and holistic wellness. She painted a picture of resilience, of defying medical odds, of embracing an alternative path to healing. Her story resonated deeply with those seeking hope, those facing their own health challenges, and those simply drawn to tales of human strength and perseverance. Through carefully crafted social media posts, through inspiring anecdotes and seemingly heartfelt testimonials, she built an empire, a brand synonymous with wellness and recovery. Books were published, products were sold, and a community of believers rallied around her seemingly miraculous story. But beneath this veneer of authenticity, a shocking truth lay hidden. The very foundation of her inspiring narrative, the cancer diagnosis itself, was a fabrication, an elaborate and sustained deception. She had never been sick in the way she claimed. The resilience, the triumph, the entire journey was a carefully constructed illusion, built upon lies that exploited the hopes and fears of countless individuals. The scale of the deception was breathtaking, a testament to the power of carefully crafted narratives in the digital age. Consider the profound sense of betrayal felt by those who placed their trust in this individual. People who may have been facing their own health battles, or supporting loved ones through illness, found inspiration and guidance in her story. They invested their time, their money, and perhaps most importantly, their hope in a narrative that was fundamentally false. Imagine the crushing disappointment, the anger, the feeling of being utterly duped when the truth finally emerged. The damage extended beyond financial loss. It eroded trust in online communities, in the stories shared through social media, and in the very idea of authentic connection in the digital realm. The exploitation of vulnerability for personal gain leaves a particularly bitter taste, a stark reminder of the potential for manipulation behind a seemingly benevolent facade. The wounds inflicted were not physical, but they were nonetheless real, impacting the emotional well-being and the sense of security of countless individuals. The exposure of this elaborate deception sent shockwaves through the online world and beyond. Investigations were launched, legal repercussions were sought. Yet, despite the widespread outrage and the clear evidence of her falsehoods, this individual has, for a decade, managed to evade the full consequences of her actions. She remains, in many ways, a phantom, a cautionary tale of the ease with which trust can be manipulated and the frustrating elusiveness of accountability in the digital age. A decade has passed since her lies were brought to light, yet the questions linger. How could such a deception have been sustained for so long? What does it say about our susceptibility to compelling narratives, regardless of their veracity? And perhaps most unsettlingly, what does it mean when individuals can inflict such widespread emotional and financial damage and seemingly disappear into the digital ether, leaving a trail of broken trust and unanswered questions in their wake? Her continued absence serves as a stark reminder that some wounds, particularly those of betrayal, may never fully heal, and that the pursuit of justice can sometimes be a long and frustrating endeavor. Story 5. Texas. A state often associated with wide-open spaces and a strong sense of community. Within its seemingly serene neighborhoods, life often unfolds with a predictable rhythm. But beneath the surface of manicured lawns and quiet streets, mysteries can take root, casting long and unsettling shadows. We now turn our attention to an affluent neighborhood where, in October of 2024, an ordinary day took a dark and perplexing turn. The disappearance of a local real estate agent would unravel a web of suspicion and unanswered questions, leaving a community grappling with the unsettling reality that even in the most seemingly idyllic settings, the unexplained can occur, leaving a void where a life once was. October 2024. Suzanne Simpson, a real estate agent in an affluent Texas neighborhood, vanished. Her disappearance was not accompanied by any immediate signs of disturbance, no clear indication of what might have befallen her. One moment, she was seemingly present in her life, the next, she was gone. As days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, the lack of any concrete evidence, any sign of her whereabouts, became increasingly concerning. The initial search efforts yielded no results. No witnesses came forward with definitive accounts. And as the investigation unfolded, attention began to focus on the person closest to her, her husband. In cases of unexplained disappearances, it is not uncommon for investigators to scrutinize the immediate family, to explore all possibilities within the closest relationships. The scrutiny surrounding Suzanne's husband intensified as the investigation progressed, yet the crucial element remained absent, Suzanne herself. Without a body, the investigation faced a significant hurdle, the lack of physical evidence making it challenging to definitively determine the nature of her disappearance. Was it a voluntary departure? Had she met with foul play? The silence surrounding her fate was deafening, amplifying the uncertainty and fueling speculation within the community. A missing person, no clear explanation, and a husband under intense scrutiny, the elements of a chilling mystery began to coalesce. As the investigation continued, the legal process began to unfold. Attorneys became involved, sifting through the available evidence, attempting to piece together the fragmented puzzle of Suzanne's disappearance. The intricacies of such a case, particularly without a body, present unique challenges for the legal system. The burden of proof, the need for concrete evidence, all become magnified in the absence of the missing person. Meanwhile, within the affluent neighborhood where Suzanne vanished, a sense of unease settled in. Neighbors who once shared casual greetings now likely exchanged concerned glances and hushed conversations. The disappearance of one of their own shattered the illusion of complete security, leaving a community on edge, desperately seeking answers and hoping for some resolution to the unsettling mystery that had taken root in their midst. The work of the attorneys and the collective anxiety of the community became intertwined, each hoping that the truth would eventually be brought to light. Imagine the anguish of Suzanne's loved ones, the profound pain of not knowing. The uncertainty of her fate, the agonizing wait for any news, any sign that might offer a clue to her whereabouts. Without a body, there is no definitive confirmation, no finality. This absence can be a particularly cruel form of torment, leaving those who care about her suspended in a state of perpetual uncertainty, caught between hope and despair. The questions linger, unanswered, casting a long shadow over their lives. Where did she go? What happened to her? The inability to find closure, to lay a loved one to rest, leaves a wound that may never fully heal, a constant ache in the hearts of those who knew and loved Suzanne Simpson. As of today, Suzanne Simpson remains missing. The investigation continues, the attorneys continue to sift through the evidence, and the affluent neighborhood in Texas continues to grapple with the unsettling reality of a life vanished without a trace. Will the truth ever be uncovered? Will Suzanne ever be found? The answers remain elusive, hidden within the silence of that October disappearance. The affluent neighborhood, once a symbol of peace and security, now carries the weight of an unsolved mystery, a stark reminder that even in the most seemingly tranquil settings, the unexplained can occur, leaving behind a void and the enduring hope that one day, the truth will finally emerge from the shadows. Story 6. Las Vegas. A city synonymous with dazzling lights, high stakes, and the pursuit of fleeting fame. Within its glittering facade, reality television often seeks to capture and amplify the drama of human lives, presenting carefully curated narratives for public consumption. But what happens when the artificiality of the screen collides with the harsh realities of human behavior? When the pursuit of attention and the intoxicating allure of excess lead to irreversible consequences? We now turn our attention to a case where the intoxicating world of reality television intersected with a moment of uncontrolled rage, resulting in a tragic loss of life and a stark reminder that behind the bright lights and manufactured drama, the potential for darkness remains. The world of reality television often thrives on heightened emotions and dramatic confrontations. Akshaya Kubiak, a star of the show Las Vegas Gigolos, lived a life seemingly amplified for the cameras. But in 2020, the artificial drama of the screen bled into a devastating reality. Details that emerged from the investigation painted a picture of a night fueled by drugs and alcohol, a descent into a state of extreme intoxication where inhibitions were lost and judgment was severely impaired. In that altered state, a confrontation occurred, a moment of intense anger that allegedly spiraled into a violent rage. The specifics of the altercation remained disturbing, but the outcome was tragically clear: a woman lost her life. The claim of blacking out would later be invoked, a desperate attempt to explain the inexplicable, to account for actions committed in a state of oblivion. But the consequences remained stark and irreversible. A life was extinguished in a moment of uncontrolled fury, a stark reminder of the destructive potential of intoxication and the devastating impact of unchecked rage. The artificial world of reality television offered no escape from the brutal reality of that night. Behind the headlines and the legal proceedings, there was a victim, a woman whose life was tragically cut short. Regardless of the circumstances surrounding that night, a life was lost due to an act of violence. Consider the hopes and dreams that were extinguished, the family and friends left to grapple with the devastating consequences of this senseless act. A moment of uncontrolled rage, fueled by intoxication, resulted in an irreparable loss, a void that can never be filled. The ripple effects of such a tragedy extend far beyond the immediate event, impacting countless lives and serving as a stark reminder of the precious and fragile nature of human life. The focus often falls on the perpetrator and the legal proceedings, but it is crucial to remember the human cost, the life that was lost, and the enduring pain of those left behind to mourn. Ultimately, Akshaya Kubiak faced the consequences of that devastating night. The legal system intervened, and a conviction was secured, holding the individual accountable for the tragic loss of life that occurred due to that drug-fueled rage. Yet, even with a legal resolution, profound questions linger. Can the allure of fame and fortune ever serve as a mitigating factor for such brutality? Where does the line of personal responsibility lie, particularly when actions committed under the influence result in irreversible harm? What obligations do individuals have to maintain control, regardless of their state of mind? These are the unsettling considerations that often surface in the aftermath of such tragic events. If these true stories, unfolding against the constant whisper of the rain, have held your attention and perhaps even stirred a sense of unease, please take a moment to show your appreciation. Give this video a like, and be sure to subscribe to our channel for more explorations into the often dark realities of true crime. Share your thoughts and reactions in the comments below. Which of these stories resonated with you the most? And if you're seeking more unsettling narratives, click the link on your screen to discover our playlist of even more chilling cases. Thank you for joining us in the shadows tonight. Now, as the rain continues its lullaby, we bid you good night. Sweet dreams, if you can.